Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and get started on our webinar. So the topic today is the 25 most common marketing mistakes. And this is part one of two. The second webinar will be next month, and we'll talk about that towards the end. So this is an interesting presentation. I put this together for the first time earlier this year. And when I delivered it the first time, which was probably a couple of months ago, as I was going through that, I realized, boy, there's a lot more I could really add to this. And so I decided to break it up into a two-part webinar going forward. So today we'll go through roughly a little over half of these, and then the second set of this stuff we'll go through next time. So for the agenda, we'll go through a little bit of background information about WEO Media and marketing in general, kind of set the stage. Then we'll dig into most of the first, probably about the first 15 or 16 of these marketing mistakes. And then we've got an offer for a free book as well at the end for folks. So let me briefly start with a quick overview of WEO Media for those who are not familiar with us. So my background personally, I'm one of the co-founders at WEO Media, and we started the company back, about 10, 11 years ago. So our focus has really been in dentistry. The last 2 years, Dentistry Today has named me one of their top CE leaders and consultants, which I really appreciate that. And last year I published my first book, Mastering Practice Growth, which we'll talk about a little bit later. We're based in Portland, Oregon, and our company, like I said, was founded in 2009. We've got about 50 team members, and all we do is dentistry. So everything I'm going to teach today on these topics is just based over my experience over the last decade of working with over 1,000 dental practices around the country, and just all the different things that we've seen, and just common. Sometimes I guess I would call it a mistake. Sometimes it's just maybe a bad decision. But some of the things that we consistently see that are not helpful. And so we're going to call those out and kind of go through what we should be doing today. Our company has won this Best of Class award from the ADA 4 years in a row, so we're very honored to win that for the category of websites and online marketing. So that's a pretty nice national award that we've won. And briefly, again, our company is a full service marketing agency, so we provide over 24 services, and here's some of the more popular ones. So what we're going to talk about today is just based on our experience of offering this many services for about a decade to a lot of dental practices. We've just gained a lot of experience, and we've got a lot of insight into what kind of common mistakes we see over and over, and that's really going to be the theme for today. Now, in this webinar, what I find effective to do is to start out with kind of just some background information about marketing, kind of how it should work at a high level. And then when we get into the main topics, it will make more sense. So something I like to start out with a lot of my webinars is just kind of some of these basics, right? So why do we implement marketing in the first place? Well, increasing revenue and profits, which thereby increases the value of the business, right? Those are obvious things. But what's also nice about online marketing in particular is we can focus on specific items where it's high margin or certain things you want to do, even certain geographies. And so it's very targeted if you want to focus on ortho or implants or whatever, or just new patients in general. Digital marketing gives us a lot of flexibility and ability to do those things. Now, ultimately, when we talk about marketing, it's important that marketing should make us money, right? If we put $1 into marketing, it should make us more than $1 coming out. So that's return on investment that we're looking for. And so if your marketing is not currently doing that, then something is probably amiss. And that's something that you should take a look at. And we can help you take a look at that as well if you'd like, to understand what's happening with your marketing and opportunities for improvement. Marketing is truly relevant for every stage of a practice, whether it's a startup or you're expanding an existing location, or even you're getting ready to retire and transition out. All those situations are relevant. Also size, whether you're a single location, multiple locations, or even a full-blown DSO, marketing matters for every doctor at every stage of their practice. So what we're going to talk about today is really relevant for all of these scenarios. Now, one thing that's important too to understand is there's really a 3-step process. We'll be thinking of like a sales funnel here in this example. 3 steps for generating new patients. So the first step is really generating leads. The second step is once we've got those leads, now we need to schedule appointments from those leads. And then the third step is, of course, selling the dentistry, case acceptance. And so you think of it kind of like this flow or this funnel. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about today is related to mistakes and issues we see with steps 1 and step 2 here, generating leads and converting leads. And so we'll talk about these more, and in particular, we'll talk about all three of these a little bit as well. Now, step 1 in particular, when we talk about generating leads, we're really focusing on a lot of times when it comes to digital marketing is these 6 pillars, right? The website, SEO and pay-per-click, online reputation, social media, and video. So these are the 6 things that we find are very important, because when a patient or a potential patient is researching a doctor online, they typically will look at 2 to 5 pieces of information. So it's important that you really have a robust, solid presence with all these things. Solid website that ranks well, lots of good reviews across all the review sites, Google and Facebook and health grades and so forth. Active social media posting on Facebook and Instagram, and videos on YouTube. All these things are things that patients will check out before they decide to come to a practice. So it's important to kind of lead with a solid baseline and a solid foundation with this stuff. Now, you can also do direct consumer marketing and other things, mailers and radio ads and all that, but it's important to first and foremost get the online marketing dialed in first. Now, this is an interesting slide too. I think this one helps explain why we recommend doing digital marketing first and why it's important to do all these things collectively effectively. So what we've got here is a lead conversion funnel. At the top of the funnel here, we've got your direct consumer marketing type stuff, mailers, magazines, ads, this type of thing. These typically only generate conversion of about 1 to 3%. So for every 100 people receiving that direct mail, you might get 1 to 3 phone calls, for example, leads. Now we compare that with what happens online when people come to a website or social media properties. It's about 10 to 20% of the people that come to those will actually become a potential lead and call to practice. And even more so with review sites. So when you get onto review sites, and I would actually include Facebook in these review sites as well, it's 40 to 70%. So this is why when people talk about what type of marketing should I do first, you first want to get the website with your social media and your reviews really dialed in, because that's where most of the people decide to convert and call your practice, contact your practice. And then once that's in place, if you want to supplement that with mailers and other things, fine. But the majority of people who get that mailer are going to come online and look at these other items. And so if you don't have these other items dialed in, then you're really going to be wasting a lot of money on these direct to consumer marketing ideas. So that's step 1, generating the leads. Step 2, now we're converting those leads into appointments. So in this step, it's really important to implement call tracking and recording. On your website, you would want to utilize online appointment scheduling combined with a 24/7 live chat service. That combination is very effective at driving conversions and driving appointments. And then with your staff, right, we want to make sure that with the staff, we are giving them proper training and coaching, letting them review their call analysis and seeing how they're doing. I've got a case study I'll show here in a few minutes, which really highlights how important this particular step really is. And then third would be case acceptance. So once we've got those potential new patients in the practice, then it comes down to treatment planning, case acceptance, and all of that. And so we're not going to really dig into this too much today, but just understand this is an important part of the process. And if any one of these 3 steps break down, return on investment suffers. So it's important to have all 3 of these steps really dialed in, and when they are, return on investment can be really, really good. Okay, so that's kind of setting the stage. Those are some of the background concepts that I just like to start some of these webinars with to make sure we're all kind of going from the same place going forward. So let's start getting into some of these things that we've seen over the years. Mistake number 1, no marketing plan. Now this is pretty common. A lot of the practices and a lot of the doctors that I've spoken with, very few of them actually have a documented, written out marketing plan. So I would highly recommend that as a place to start. Now, when you write out a marketing plan, you want to start with defining goals. So how many new patients per month would you like to achieve? What type of patient acquisition costs are you looking for? What's an acceptable acquisition cost for you? Meaning, if you pay $1,000 to get a patient, that's too much, right? If you pay $100, that's really good. So figuring out what are those patient acquisition rates, we typically see and recommend about $100 to $200 for an acquisition cost for a patient is pretty good for general dentistry. It will vary by specialist depending on what specialist you're doing, but that's a reasonable range. New patient referrals. This is another area where you would want to really focus on how can we get as many referrals from our existing patient base as possible? It's the most effective form of marketing. It's the cheapest form of marketing. And so you really want to put concentrated effort into that as well. So list out all your goals, right? Now, once you've got your goals, then under each goal, you're going to want to line out the details. How are we going to achieve this? So new patients per month, well, that's a combination of your online marketing. Maybe you're doing some direct marketing with mailers. Maybe you're doing some community outreach. Maybe you are doing a lot of internal marketing with patient referrals. So what are all the things that are go into each of these goals and metrics? And then another thing, when you're talking about budget and planning, for practices that grow, that want to grow, we recommend a growth budget of between 3% to 7% of the total revenue should be allocated to marketing. So if you're $1 million practice, you do $1 million a year in revenue, then 3 to 7% of that should be spent on marketing, meaning $30,000 to $70,000 a year. The practices that are consistently in that range do very, very well. There's an organization called the Academy of Dental CPAs, and they've also put out similar numbers that they collectively, there are several dozen dental CPA firms around the country in that organization. They collectively represent over 9,000 dental practices. And this is very, very similar numbers to what they recommend and what they see for their clients who are growing, really solid growth. This is the kind of budget level that they're in. Now, a lot of practices are spending $100 or $300 or $500 a month, and that's just simply not sufficient if you really want to grow. Mistake number 2, not having regular marketing review meetings. This is really important. Now, most practices are at least familiar with the concept of a morning huddle, and I think a lot of practices probably do exercise that practice of having a morning huddle. Why do you do that? Well, morning huddle, you get together and you talk about what patients do we have for the day. You're planning, you're getting organized, and you're reviewing the previous day, and you're talking about what's going to happen today and tomorrow and so forth. So when you meet, it focuses everybody around the task at hand, around the goals and the expected outcomes. So it's an effective process. So with marketing, you definitely don't need to meet about marketing every day, but I would say 1 to 3 times a quarter. So once a month, maybe every 2 months, or maybe once every 3 months. So something like that, you should have a marketing review meeting with whoever the appropriate people are. If you don't have a marketing person in your practice, then maybe it's just the doctor and the office manager. If you have a marketing person, then obviously that person with the office manager and the doctor, right? So when you have this marketing meeting, you should be kind of reviewing the high-level stuff that's in your written marketing plan. What are those key metrics? What are the goals? And how are we doing against those goals, right? And then discuss, if you're doing well, great. If you have things that you need to improve on, what are the plans and ideas to improve that? Now, if you've partnered with a marketing agency like our company, WEO Media, we often will like to be part of those meetings sometimes if you want us to. We can listen in, we can provide advice and feedback, at least on a portion of the meeting. So those are things to consider when you think about, how do I really get my marketing going to that next level? You really need to have kind of a regular meeting schedule with your internal people as well as your marketing partners external to your firm. Mistake number 3. This is something that I see a lot, which is not really utilizing the full breadth of the services that you should be doing, in particular the 6 pillars, right? So we always want to see people having that robust online presence, because that is just the nature of how patients search for doctors nowadays. So you've really got to have all these things operating well and effectively. If you do, you typically get pretty good results. If not, then potential patients can slip through the cracks. So it's like I said earlier, typically 2 to 5 pieces of information a patient's going to look at before picking up the phone and calling a practice, potential new patient, that is. So website, Yelp reviews, Facebook posts, Instagram posts, YouTube videos. They're going to look at all this stuff, maybe your health grades profile, a lot of this kind of thing they're going to vet. So it's very important that you have all these things, that you're covering your bases. It's not sufficient to simply put up a website and do a few Facebook posts and call it good. That just is not going to get the job done. Mistake number 4, and I'm kind of lumping these next few mistakes, I'm kind of lumping these first 3 steps all together here. So common issues we see with step 1, with generating new patient leads, not using a phone tracking number, that's a real issue. So we always recommend using a tracking phone number. So, and by primary marketing channel. So for example, everything online, ideally you'd want to have one tracking number for all of that. And that way you can see, in the marketing company, everybody can see how many calls are being generated from that phone number, which only exists on that marketing channel. So your digital marketing should have one phone number. Your direct mailers could have multiple phone numbers. You might choose to use different phone numbers on your social media, although there's pros and cons with that. Now, likewise, when the phone does ring, it's really critical to make sure everybody's answering the phone, said, oh, how did you hear about us? And put that how did you hear about us information into your practice management software, into your Dentrix, your EagleSoft, your Open Dental, whatever you're using. Make sure you're documenting that, because then when you have that monthly marketing meeting, you need to pull that data and see where are all of our new patients coming from. The more accurate the data you have, the better decisions you're going to be able to make about how to allocate your budget going forward. So this is a really critical piece of getting good results long term, is really tracking your patient flow. So step two, issues with step two. Now this is, again, converting leads into patients. We always recommend using a 24/7 live chat if you've got enough website traffic to kind of justify it. So if you have a new website and there's only 100 people a month hitting your website, you're probably not going to get a good return on investment from a chat service. However, if you are, 400, 500 visitors a month or more, you're typically going to get a very good return on investment with your chat service. So the chat service is a lot of times the one we use. It actually can also do online appointment scheduling. So they're engaging with the chat with a potential patient or an existing patient. They can go ahead and schedule that appointment for them right there on the chat 24/7, which is pretty cool. Other mistakes we see here, making sure that the staff is answering all incoming calls. I've done this analysis a few times looking at a broad swath of call data for our client base. And the average that I see nationally is around 25% of all calls are going to voicemail. And I've talked to other tracking companies who've seen similar numbers. And so I think this is a pretty solid number that you can bank on, is on average across the country, about 25% of the calls are going to voicemail. So if you're spending $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month or more on marketing and a quarter of your calls are going to voicemail, you're just lighting money on fire. It's literally wasting money. So one of the things I always recommend for folks is if you're not able to consistently answer all of your calls, then you should use a call center to only catch the overflow calls. And we have some great resources and people we've worked with on this. But how these call centers can typically work is if you don't answer after 3 rings, it immediately forwards to them. And the call centers, depending on who you use, if they're dental specific, they can a lot of times, log into your practice management software and see your schedule if you want them to, or if you just simply want them to take a message and forward you that information, they can do that too. They're pretty flexible. But I always recommend using a call center for overflow calls if you are spending a good deal of money on marketing, and especially if you're not answering your calls, because that's one of the biggest reasons I see people not get a good return on investment is this issue right here, the phones. They're not answering the phones. Now, there's software that we can use to analyze and record all the phone calls. One of the best services out there that I've seen that we recommend for our clients is called Patient Prism. And I'm going to show you a case study with a client that used WEO Media, and we were doing a pretty darn good job for them, but they had some real issues related to these conversions, and we used Patient Prism to figure that out. And I'm going to go through that case study here in just a minute. But this is pretty common when we see people not getting a return on investment. It's generally because they're not doing a good job at converting the leads into appointments. Step 3. So issues we see with step 3 would be just not really having kind of a proper review and proper training for people on case acceptance and treatment planning and these types of things. So again, I don't want to get too much into this today, but just this is something that you should be tracking and seeing in your key performance metrics. If you're using a business analytics software like Practice Analytics or Dental Intel or Practice by Numbers, there's a number of them out there. If you're using one of these type of services, software services, then make sure that you're reviewing those key metrics. And if you see consistently differences between team members in terms of case acceptance and treatment planning, there's training opportunities there to improve your performance. So here's the case study that I wanted to go through. This is a really interesting case study, and I think it really highlights what I've seen time and time again with clients who they say, oh, we're not getting a return on your marketing. And then we look, well, 35% of your calls are going to voicemail, right? So there's a problem. Here's a really, really good example of what's happening. So this is a dental group that we work with for quite a while. They have 6 locations located in the Northeast region of the country. And they really wanted just like, hey, we just want patient growth in general, any type of patient. They weren't really focusing on, oh, we just want implants or we just want ortho. They just like, we just want new patient flow. They had a solid marketing budget, about 5%. So we were generating a lot of leads and they were doing pretty good. We implemented for them website, SEO, PPC reviews, chat, scheduling, and videos. And as you can see here, this represents all those pillars. So it was a really robust program we had in place. The results from WEO in particular, so we were able to generate for the 6 practices, we were averaging 169 new patients a month for them, which is about 28 per location, 28 new patients a month per location, just from the digital marketing. They were also doing mailers and some other stuff like that, but things that we could track directly to the digital marketing were 28 patients per month per location with an average acquisition cost of $163. And 163 is pretty solid. It's not incredible, but it's solid. It's a good number. We like to see around 150, 175, 125, kind of in that range is really good. If you can get under 150, that's really good. This is where they were, okay? Now, I suspected because of the amount of leads we were generating that there was something amiss going on. And so we had them implement Patient Prism. And this is one of the many dashboards within Patient Prism. And so on the bottom left here, what you see are phone calls connected versus not connected. The green bars are connected. The red bars are calls that are not connected, meaning they hung up before they got to somebody. So if you look at that, this is what I'm talking about, where the yellow arrows are, that red bar. So this is before. Now what happened was we started using Patient Prism and we realized, man, we are losing a ton of people in the call tree. And so we listened to the call tree, and with the practice, right? They listened to the call tree and figured out, oh my gosh, this call tree is like 30 seconds long. Press 1 for this, press 2 for that. It was obnoxious. And so we were just losing a lot of people the practice was losing a lot of people in this call tree. But we would have never known this if we didn't use Patient Prism. So what we did, this is before we implemented the call tree changes. Afterwards, look how low those red bars are. Made a huge difference. And so here's the actual data for the 6 locations plus their call center. So before the call tree change is up on top. The yellow bar there is a summary. 24% of all phone calls were dropping in the call tree. 24%. That's not all disconnected calls. That's just the calls that were dropping in the phone tree, which is crazy. After the call tree change, the phone tree change, it dropped to 4%, which is an incredible improvement. So this is just one example of what happens when you start tracking and digging into your marketing data. So here they're plugging along, getting a decent result, largely because their marketing budget was so high. But they had no idea that they were missing out on this many opportunities. So once they started paying closer attention to step 2 in that marketing process, how are we doing converting the calls? They realized, whoa, we've got a major problem here. So in summary, here's what this looked like. Overall, they were generating about 2,400 calls per month between the 6 locations. So before the call tree change, 24% of the callers were dropping, after only 4%. So what that means is they got an additional 478 calls per month for the exact same marketing budget. They spent no more money, but now they're talking to 480 more people per month by simply making a change in their call tree. This is astounding. Now, this is not that unusual because a lot of practices simply do not pay attention to this stuff. They don't see how many calls are being dropped. They don't see how many calls are not being answered. They don't see, they don't kind of secret shop their own practice and see, wow, if I call in, she really sounded like unenthusiastic on the phone, or man, I keep going to voicemail every time I call. These are a lot of issues that will kill the return on investment of your marketing. So a lot of times when people complain to me about their marketing performance, I look at the data and say, wow, we've tripled your phone calls. I know immediately what's going on. They're not answering the phone. They're doing a bad job of answering the phone if they are answering it. I know that's what's happening. And so I always recommend, let's use Patient Prism and help diagnose what the situation is. So once Patient Prism was activated and we made those changes to the call tree, all those additional calls flowing in dropped their new patient acquisition cost from $163 per patient down to $136. So that's a significant improvement. Again, for the same marketing budget, we just simply identified a problem and fixed it. And this is just one problem. This is a big problem, but it's just indicative of once you start paying close attention to these items, it can make a huge difference in the effectiveness of your marketing program. Okay, back into the mistakes. So number 7, this is something that we don't see nearly as often anymore, but we still see it periodically. And this is making sure your website is optimized for mobile devices. Mobile device meaning a phone and a tablet. Either one of those are considered mobile devices. So how you can tell is you go to Google and you type in Google mobile friendly test. Okay, when you type in Google mobile friendly test, you'll see this little gray image here below. So that's what's going to kind of pop up on your screen. So where it says enter a URL, so in that little white box there, just type in your website address, www.whatever.com, hit the little button, and then it's going to spit out some test results. And it's either going to be on the left where it says green, page is mobile friendly. You're good to go. Your site is rendered properly and you're fine. However, if you get what's viewed here on the right where it says page is not mobile friendly, that's a real big problem. Most markets, it's 60 to 70% of the traffic hitting your website is on a mobile device now. So if your mobile website has issues, you need to get that fixed immediately, where you are most certainly losing existing and new patient opportunities. So if you're not sure, again, type in Google mobile friendly test, enter your website address there, and it will give you this result. Now, if you have issues or if you're just not sure how to interpret the results, contact your website company. They should be able to help you understand that. Mistake number 8, not having a secure website. Now, sometimes people confuse this with security like hacking prevention. This is not hacking prevention. That's different. This is secure transmission on the website itself. So what this is called is HTTPS. So when you have a website in the olden days, all websites were HTTP. And then slash, www.yourwebsite.com. And so what it should look like is this: HTTPS // www.yourwebsite.com or .net or whatever it is. So that's what it should look like. If you don't have the S, and the S is right here, okay? If you have the HTTP without that S, then you need to contact your website company and ask them to add an SSL certificate. Say, hey, I need to make my website HTTPS secure, and they can do that for you. But if you're not, it's not that you're vulnerable to hacking or anything like that. It's more of a preference for Google. Google's really come out strongly and said we want all websites to move towards HTTPS. It can help with a number of things. There is a little bit of a hacking component, but not nearly as much as people think. It's really more about what Google's preferences are. So just make sure you do this. A lot of websites are migrating over to this now, but I still see quite a few that are not. So again, check your website, see if you have the S. If not, contact your company to get it fixed. I shouldn't say fixed. It's not like something's broken, but just to get it upgraded. Mistake number 9. So working with outdated plugins. So this is relevant not for all websites, but for websites that are open source platforms like WordPress or Squarespace, Drupal, Joomla. There's just dozens of these open source platform kind of do-it-yourself websites, and that's fine. You can use those, but just realize these open source platforms rely on a heavy dose of third-party plugins. Kind of like good analogies with you've got your iPhone or your Android, your smartphone, and you have apps on your phone, right? Think of it kind of like apps for your website. It's not exactly, but it's kind of like that. So a lot of people will use these plugins on websites to give the websites additional functionality. It could be design functionality, it could be forms, it could be security, it could be SEO performance. Lots and lots and lots of different plugins, and hundreds of plugins exist for these things. So that's great. It gives your website additional functionality. The problem is if you don't update those plugins when the plugin developer issues a new version and you don't update it, a lot of times it can create a security opportunity for hacking. And so these open source platforms get by far the majority of all the hacking on websites around the world are on WordPress and these types of WordPress in particular, but on these types of platforms. So it's really critical, and the mistake here is if you have an open source platform like this that you're using, make sure that your website company is really staying on top of updating all of your plugins. I see this all the time with these third-party plugins where they're not updated, and then people get hacked, and hacking happens quite a bit. Now, with our websites at WEO Media, We don't use an open source platform. We've built our own platform. It's closed. It's highly secure. We've had over 5 million hack attempts on our platform. We've never been hacked once, not once, knock on wood, but in over 10 years, we've never been hacked once, despite, like I said, over 5 million hack attempts. That's a huge benefit of having a closed platform like we do. It's also a lot better for SEO. But if you're using an open source platform, make sure your website company is updating your plugins. That's something you should ask them on probably a quarterly basis, just to remind them. Now, this is such a big issue and such a big topic. I actually wrote a white paper on this. And so it's basically all the issues and things you need to be aware of if you're using a WordPress website. So if you would like a copy of this white paper, just please send an email to info@weomedia.com here on the bottom of the screen. That will come to me and several other people, and I'll make sure that I'll email you a copy of this white paper. It's really important to read this if you are currently using a WordPress website. Mistake number 10. In social media. So we're switching gears. We've been talking about websites. Now we're switching gears into social media mistakes. So this is a common issue that we see a lot of times where people don't actually reply to the posts. And so if you post something on Facebook or Instagram or whatever you're using, and then people reply, they like it, they comment, they retweet it, whatever, they're engaging with it, that's great. But you should kind of go back and reply to those things. So if people say, to make it more of a conversation. Now, the one thing I would say is be very careful about HIPAA when you're doing online communications. You should not be, identifying people as directly as patients per se. You definitely shouldn't be talking about anything clinical pertaining to their treatment. But you can keep it generic. Oh, thanks for the feedback, or you can put posts out there like, oh, hey, we're out here in the community today, supporting our local, whatever it is, charity or something like that. Put those type of posts and people reply, oh, that's so cool. It's like, yeah, we had a great time. Just kind of replying to those posts. Not only does it boost your engagement on social media, which can lead to more patient flow, but the other thing is it's actually very powerful for SEO performance, Google ranking. So when Google's trying to decide how to rank a website, it's looking at over 200 factors to how to rank a website. And so one of those factors is social media engagement. So if you simply post something on social media and nobody replies, or they reply but you don't reply to them, Google looks at that as like there's not much engagement happening, so it doesn't really have any impact on your SEO performance, your website rankings. However, if people are commenting on your social media and you're replying back and there's kind of dialogue happening, Google looks at that as a very strong SEO indicator, and that can actually really help your website rank higher. So this is something that people say, well, what does my Facebook page have anything to do with how my website ranks on Google? It actually does. Google takes a very holistic approach to analyzing businesses online, and it's looking at everything it can find out about your business online, and it takes many of those things into consideration when it determines how high should I rank or how low should I rank this website. So there's some different benefits here for engaging with social media that are maybe not readily obvious. Number 11. So it's fine, and this I'm gonna kind of beat up marketing companies like my own here for a minute. It's totally fine to use a marketing company like us to post social media posts for you. That's great. I recommend it. But just recognize the limitations there. The posts that a third-party company like us can do are typically going to be a bit more generic, not as customized, not as personalized. And so what I've seen over and over and over is the most effective posts, meaning they get the best engagement and the best impact, the most sharing, are the posts that come from the practice themselves. And it's the personal stuff. It's birthdays, it's events, it's social gatherings, it's just anything that's kind of fun or interesting. Those type of posts definitely get the best type of engagement. So I always advocate both. I say, yeah, go ahead and hire an agency to make sure you've got a good steady dose of consistent posting. That's helpful. But in addition to that, if you can layer in some of your own posts that are personal, that combination together is really, really good. So just remember that. Don't just outsource social media and think, okay, check the box, set it and forget it. I still would encourage you to be actively involved in your social media in addition to whatever the agency might be doing for you as well. Okay, number 12. So we're switching from social media now to a little bit of a different topic here, which is online reputation. And so it's really, really important now to make sure that we ask for reviews, ask for feedback. So People say, well, man, I'm not really comfortable asking people to write me a review online. And I agree. I'm not comfortable with that either. But what I am comfortable with and what you should be comfortable with is asking for feedback. Say, hey, we appreciate you coming in today. So glad that you came in for your appointment. We would love to get your feedback. Would it be okay if we sent you a little text message or a little email just to get your feedback online? And it's not threatening. It's not leading. You're not asking them to do you a favor. You're saying, hey, we'd love your feedback. Most of the time people say, yeah, sure, you bet. And so we have software. There's lots of companies out there that have software, but our software will integrate with your practice management software. It will automatically text and email patients after appointments. And when you do that, it will significantly increase the number of reviews you can drive to Google and Facebook and Health Grades and a lot of these review sites. So that would be what I would encourage you to do, is focus primarily on Google reviews and then secondarily Facebook and the others. The other thing I would say is, if you happen to use a software like ours or anybody else's, don't point those reviews to Yelp. The reason is Yelp is very, very particular and strict about, if they determine or believe that you're using any sort of automated system to drive reviews to their platform, they will remove all the reviews, and in some cases even put up a nasty note on your page: this business is in violation of Yelp's policies and procedures, or something like that. So I would really encourage you to steer away from Yelp if you're using software. You can ask for Yelp reviews, just do it the old-fashioned way, just kind of manually ask, or put up a little sticker in your window, something like that. But this is an important thing. Much like social media, you kind of need to be proactive here and ask people for the feedback online. Remember that little triangle I showed earlier: 40% to 70% of the people make a decision after they look at your reviews. So, and if you're wondering, well, how many reviews should I have? Great question. What I would say is, do a Google search and look at the doctors around you within 1 or 2 mile radius around you and see how many they have. The answer to the question is more than them. If they've got 50 to 70, you would want 100, 120, 150. You want more than them, because generally the star rating, the average star rating, is the most important factor. The second most important factor is going to be the number of reviews. So if you've got lots of reviews and you have over a 4.5 star average, that's going to beat somebody who's got a similar star rating but a lot fewer reviews. So it's really important to do this. And much like social media engagement, reviews are also a major factor for SEO ranking. So not only do you get the benefit of the online reputation piece, but you get a secondary benefit that it really helps SEO performance as well. Mistake number 13, now sticking with this whole online reputation stuff, very similar to online, but social media, where we want people to reply to the reviews. It's equally important to do this on the review sites for the same reasons. If people write a review, whether it's a positive review or a negative review, we recommend people reply to all of the reviews. Now, there's a number of reasons for that, why we would recommend that. One of them is, again, it increases engagement, which is a strong signal to Google, so it helps your Google ranking, so that's all good. Now, in addition to that, there are some of the platforms have published studies in the past. So one of the studies that I'm familiar with, it actually comes from Yelp. And what Yelp published was on their businesses, this is not just dentistry specific, but this is all businesses in general that use Yelp, small businesses. What they said in their published study was, the businesses that consistently reply to the posts had a 10% higher average star rating than those that did not. So, for example, the people who did not reply to posts, let's say they have a 4.0 star average, the people who reply to the post would be a 4.4 star average, for example, 10% higher. So this is a really big deal. And one of the ways you can help improve your online reputation is when you go back and you reply to people's posts, the reviews, whether it's positive or negative, people like to see that interaction, and typically give you the benefit of the doubt. And so, even if it's a negative post, a negative review, and you go on there, it's fine to reply to that negative review. Just again, keep HIPAA in all your reviews, your replies rather. Again, keep HIPAA in mind and make sure that you're not directly talking about anything treatment related. You're technically not even supposed to recognize that they're a patient. So you could say something generic like, "Oh, we really appreciate the feedback. Thank you so much." Something like that. That's kind of nebulous. That would be fine. So those are some of the things to keep in mind when you're thinking about your online reputation. Number 14. Now we're going to switch gears to a little bit of a different topic here. Another one of the 6 pillars. Videos. So if you post videos on YouTube, and we generally recommend YouTube to post your videos because YouTube is owned by Google. YouTube is integrated into Google search results. And so when you post your videos and host them on YouTube, you get a secondary benefit on Google with potential search, which is nice. Now, when you do that, when you upload a video to YouTube, that when you're setting up the video, there are different settings and things you can do. Now, there's a title for the video that you can type out, and then there's a description that you can type out which describes what's in the video, what the video is about. And a lot of times people actually leave that blank. They don't even bother to do that, and that's actually a mistake. What you want to do is make sure in the title of the video and the description that you type out about the video, make sure that you're using keywords that you want to rank for in a Google search. So if you're posting a patient testimonial video and it's about a great job that you did with Invisalign or whatever, make sure that you're talking in the title of that video should be, patient testimonial Invisalign or something like that. And then in the text, again, you're not putting the patient's names in here, of course, but you're saying, this patient was really happy and satisfied with the Invisalign treatment they received at our practice. We wanted to post this and share, make sure you're including some keywords so Google knows what it's about. If you don't type in the keywords in the title and the description of the video, Google's not going to know what it's about. Google's an algorithm. It can't watch videos and understand like human beings can. So you need to tell Google by typing out the descriptions, here is what this video is about. Here are the keywords I want it to rank for, Google. So you need to kind of tell Google and lead Google along the process. And when you do that, you have an opportunity where these videos now, let's say you post 10 patient testimonial videos. If you properly fill out the title and the descriptions, now you've got 10 online properties that are sitting on Google. When people type in keywords relative to that, in addition to your website popping up for a search result, you've got 10 videos that could potentially pop up on the search result as well. So the more videos you can do like this, the more it creates opportunities for you to get found online, more leads coming your way. So I mean, this doesn't take much time. It's pretty simple to do, but it's just another one of these common mistakes that we see people do all the time. Another thing with video. Now, it's fine to do the DIY videos, do-it-yourself videos, right? That's what DIY, do-it-yourself. If you're going to do, selfie videos, that's fine for certain types of videos. If you're doing, patient testimonials or frequently asked questions, or nowadays with safety being such a huge hot button concern for people, posting a safety video about here's what we're doing in our practice, all those types of things, those are fine. You can get away with shooting those on a smartphone and putting them on YouTube and your social media platforms and putting them on the website. That's all fine. The professional videos would be the overview video. So if you're going to shoot an overview video about your practice, that should always be done by a professional. And that's the video that you want to put on the homepage of your website, that 60 to 90-second overview of your practice. So that's critically important. And a professional is going to properly do all that. They're going to have good audio quality and good lighting and all that. The mistake here for number 15 is on the do-it-yourself videos. If you're doing these selfies, make sure that the audio quality and the lighting is good. This is something that really can kill the effectiveness of a video, is if the quality is hard to hear, or it's a little bit scratchy, or there's echoes, or it's not lit well, it's hard to see. Those things make videos very, very ineffective compared to how they could be. So and the nice thing about shooting these things on your smartphone is it's free and it's easy to just delete and do it again, right? So just kind of pay some attention to that when you're posting these things. And then once you've kind of got a nice video that you like, if you've got a Facebook app or the YouTube app or the Instagram app on your phone, it's really easy to just plop your video right in via those apps. And the cool thing is once the video is hosted on YouTube, it's very easy to take some YouTube code and embed the video now on your website. So you can really leverage these videos across all your online properties for the most part. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is an important thing that we see sometimes people don't pay attention to that really undermines the effectiveness. Okay, number 16, direct to consumer. This is something I alluded to a little bit earlier, but I've seen this happen quite a few times, where people want to send out direct mailers, but they don't have the online marketing dialed in first. And this is a problem for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is, of course, conversion, so lead conversion. When you send out, let's say you send out 5,000 mailers, and a good chunk of those people who are interested, a few of them, 1% maybe, are going to pick up the phone and call, but most of them who are interested are going to go online, search for your website, search for your doctor's name, and they're going to look at your Google reviews. They'll go check out your Facebook posts. You know, they're going to do some homework. And so their majority of them are going to go online and do research before contacting your practice. So direct mail is a little bit tricky to track because you can put a tracking number on there and see how many calls you got from the mail piece. But I would bet that at least half or more of the leads you end up getting from direct mail end up going online. In fact, probably a lot more than that. So it's really important to make sure you've got the solid website, good Google reviews, Facebook posts, all this, some nice videos. Really have a nice, robust online presence, and make sure that you've got your tracking phone numbers in place so you can see all the leads coming in. Once you've got all that dialed in, now if you want to do direct consumer marketing, go for it. That's fine, because now you're not going to lose those opportunities. But this is something that I see this in particular with startups, where it's like, oh, we're just launching our practice. We want to do a big mailer blast and to get people to come in when we open up. And that's true. I get that. But make sure your website's live first before those mailers hit people's doorsteps, right? Before they hit their mailboxes. So otherwise, again, you're missing out on huge opportunities. So this is just common stuff that we see quite a bit. Now, what we're really doing in this first section today is I really wanted to focus on website mistakes, social media, reputation management, and direct consumer marketing. We're really wrapping up the first webinar today. Next month, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a bunch of mistakes that are related specifically to SEO, search engine optimization for your Google rankings, and pay-per-click and stuff like that. And so if you'd like to register for the upcoming webinars, just go to our website, weomedia.com, weomedia.com, and under the education tab, you'll see there's a little webinar schedule. Click on webinar schedule, it'll take you to this page, and then you can just see all of our upcoming webinars and you can register for them. And this way you'll be able to make sure you can catch part 2, the second part of the webinar today. So one thing I like to mention at the end of all of my webinars is we have a team of consultants around the country at WEO Media, practice management or marketing consultants. And so what our marketing consultants do is, if you would like to engage with them, and this is all free, they will analyze your website, your tracking data if you've got it, your SEO performance, your online reputation, and your social media. They'll take a look at all that stuff, and they'll compile a report, and they'll give you that feedback. And it's not a big sales pitch, it's an educational process. What we have found is if we can educate doctors and practices and office managers and marketing managers, if we can educate everyone about how this stuff works, we can show them that, hey, obviously we know what we're talking about, and we can kind of gain some credibility there. But that's how we grow our business, is by educating people, and we figure if they want the help, they'll reach out to us and they'll say, hey, can you help us with that? Hey, yeah, absolutely, we'd love to. But we're not going to sales pitch you. We're not going to high pressure you to death. We're just going to educate you to death. And so that's why we like to do these webinars. That's also why I wrote this book. So if you do a consultation with one of our consultants, they'll just send you a free copy of this book as well as just a thank you for engaging with us. So I'll leave my contact information up here on the screen. What I realized when I've done these webinars over the years is a lot of times people will ask questions. So there's a little console dashboard, on the webinar there. If you want to ask questions, you can do that. But what I find most people prefer to do is kind of talk after the fact. So you can send me an email, you can text me if you want. We can set up a time to talk. I'm happy to answer everybody's questions on these marketing topics. So if there's anything today that we covered that resonates, like, I have a question about this or that, send me an email, text me, we'll set up a time to talk. And I want to make sure we get all of your questions answered. But anyway, for today, that concludes our webinar today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend it with me here. And hopefully you got some good information. Next month, we'll wrap up the second part of this webinar and give you some good information with SEO and PPC mistakes, what to do properly. So thanks for attending today. Hope you got some good information, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.